Hello, dear students. Today I am going to take the second chapter of your textbook First Flight, and the name of the chapter is Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. Long Walk to Freedom is basically the autobiography of Nelson Mandela. You must have already heard the name of Nelson Mandela, and I think you must have read about Nelson Mandela and his works in your SST books as well. First of all, here I am going to read a news article which came on 10th of May in 1994 from BBC. Just read what was the news that day. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress Party won 252 of 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Building Amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another, said Nelson Mandela in his address. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, and colorists celebrating together. More than 1 lakh South African men, women, and children of all races sang and danced with joy. That was the news that day which came. So, just to remind you, in 1994, Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. He struggled for their freedom, and basically the apartheid system in which there was separation of people according to their race, there was discrimination amongst the people of Africa, discrimination of black and white. That system was apartheid system, and Nelson Mandela stood against it. He fought against it. He struggled against it, and finally, even after staying 30 years in prison in his struggle, finally he got what he wanted. So now we are going to read his autobiography in his own words, what he said that day, what he has written in this part. Let's read it out. 10th May dawned bright and clear. It was a bright and clear morning of 10th May. For the past few days I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. Here he is talking about the inauguration ceremony of his newly elected government. So he says he was surrounded by so many people and world leaders coming there for the inauguration ceremony. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union Buildings in Pretoria. So that ceremony was held in an amphitheatre. Amphitheatre is a big building with many rows of seats, like an auditorium, a big hall which was formed by the Union Buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy. This has been the seat of white people. They were ruling from there for many decades, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. And now so many people of different races and colors like a rainbow have come there to celebrate, to install the new non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani. My daughter Zenani was also with me that day. On the podium, Mr. de Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. So first of all, when the ceremony started, as the second deputy president, Mr. de Klerk took oath. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the republic and its people. After second and first deputy president, I took oath as president, and I pledged to obey and uphold the constitution, to abide by the rules of constitution, to the well-being of the Republic of Africa and its people. To the assembled guests and watching world, I said. Now he tells on that day what he said in that oath taking ceremony. He says, I said, today all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. He says, today all of us here, which have gathered here, we give the hope to our newborn freedom. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. After experiencing so long time of that disaster, there should be a new society born which all the humanity will be proud of. Further, he says, we who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world in our own soil. He says, we people who were just broken off from the diplomatic relation, we were outlaws means we were broken off from the diplomatic relations not so long ago. Now today we have this privilege, we have today this privilege to host the nations of the world on our own soil. We have our own soil today. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take position with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. So he thanks all the people gathered there to come there, and he says, after all, it is a common victory of justice, peace, and human dignity. Further, he says, we have at last achieved our political emancipation. At last, we have achieved our freedom from restrictions, our emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. So he says, we pledge today that we should liberate, we should free all our people from the bond of poverty, from deprivation, means when we do not have the rightful needs, the sufferings, and all other discrimination. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. He says, in future we shall never experience this oppression of one by another. Suppressing, oppression means suppressing, domination of one on other people. So we shall never experience it again. The sun shall never set on so glorious as a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. This he said. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union buildings. After that, there was a spectacular, it was impressive display of aeroplanes, jets, and helicopters. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision, accuracy, and military force, it was not only the display of that, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy. It was also the demonstration of loyalty of military to the nation, to a new government that had been free and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of South African Defence Force and Police, their chests vacant, bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. He just few moments ago, all the big officers of army and police, he says, he saluted and pledged for their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. But still, I am not unaware that just few years ago they could not have saluted but they could have arrested me. That was the situation. But today they saluted. Finally, a seven of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. Finally, a fleet of those jet planes leaving a trail of different colors of the South African flag just flown above. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems. That day, he says, two national anthems were played, and the vision of whites singing and Kosi Sikilil Africa and blacks singing Dice Stem. So these two anthems, anthem of blacks was different and anthems of white was different. The old anthem of the Republic, Dice Stem, was sung by the blacks. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, that day maybe white people did not know the black's anthem and black did not know the white's anthem that day because they hated each other earlier. They would soon know the words by heart, but he hopes that soon they will know these words by heart. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with the sense of history. In the first decade of 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, a white-skinned people of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned people of their own land. It happened earlier how white people dominated and formed their own domination over the dark-skinned people of same country. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhuman societies the world has ever known, and because of that, it became the harsh and most inhuman society. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century, and my own 8th decade as a man, as I am now 80 years, I am in 80s, so my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned, that system had been destroyed forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all people. New system had been created which recognizes the rights and freedoms of all people regardless of their color of the skin. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. We cannot repay, we cannot count their courage and their suffering. I felt that day as I have on so many others day. Others day also I felt that day the same feeling that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. I am only the sum, the total of all those African patriots who had sacrificed their life before me. That long and noble line ended and now began again with me. Those warriors, those patriots, their line, I was now again starting their line. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. It was hurting me that I was not able to thank those great warriors, those great patriots, and also that they were not able, after their sacrifices, what was the result? The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. It created a long lasting injury in my country and in my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. It will take many generations, many years from recovering from that wounds. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect. But there is one more effect which was not intended, so we were not intentional, it was. And what was that another effect? That it produced the Oliver Thambos, the Walter Sissulus, the Chief Luthulis, the Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Sobukus of our time. Means we got people of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity that their like may never be known again. Because of that, these great people emerged. Perhaps it requires much depth of operation to create such heights of character. He says that maybe to create such height of character, to create such means people having such great character, it takes a lot of operation, it takes a lot of suffering. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. Though African land is rich in minerals, but he says that those people were more worthy, more costlier than those gems and minerals. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Comrades, those companions in the struggle, he says he learned the meaning of what is courage. Time and again I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen many times people giving their lives. I have seen men stand up to attack and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. Beyond the imagination, they show their strength. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. What I learned is that courage is not absence of fear, but to win the fear. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear, who wins that fear, is actually brave. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. Since birth, nobody hates other person because of color or skin. People must learn to hate. It's a thing which is to be learned, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love also, because love comes more naturally to human heart than its opposite, than hate. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, when I was tortured to my limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards. I could see a little hope of humanity in one of the guards guarding there, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. But that even a little shine, little glimmer of humanity was enough for me, so that I would be hopeful for keeping going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. So, good qualities in a man, the goodness of a man is that of flame which may be hidden for some time, but it cannot be extinguished. So that part, first part, ends here, and there are now few questions. Out of these, I want you to try only first two questions to answer. Okay, that will be your assignment for today. That's all for now. Thank you.